Hi, I'm Christopher Walker with Closely Observed Teaching, and in this video we're going to look at the idea of teacher development and teacher training, starting from the bottom and working all the way up to the top, wherever that might be. So let's start at the beginning, shall we? And before you become an English teacher, teach English as a second or foreign language, it's really useful that you have some kind of initial teacher training. Now, if you're moving into English teaching from another area of teaching, then you might feel that you're already qualified to begin. But speaking from experience, I think that something like the CELTA is really, really vital. I started teaching back in 2002. I worked in Japan for a company called GEOS, and they basically accepted anyone who was a native speaker. So I was very happy to go and work for them. I only lasted 6 months, and the main reason for that was that I didn't know what I was doing. A few years later, I went back into teaching. I went to International House Krakow, and I got myself a CELTA. So it was a 4-week course, really intensive, teaching practice every day with feedback, and that's really the crucial thing here. And at the end of those 4 weeks, I felt a little bit more confident. I was better equipped for the challenges of teaching, and well, I'm still here now, and it's been over 10 years. So yeah, it really sets you up, and then you can move on to the next thing. When you've got your CELTA, you'll probably be looking for a job as a teacher. Here it's quite important that you find a school with a good training program. When I first started working in Japan, the training program was, let's say, lackluster. We had training sessions once every 2 months or so, and they were in a different city. So I had to take a 3-hour train ride just to get to the place where I'd have a 1-day training session. We learned a few things, and they were useful. I was able to put them into practice in my lessons, but it wasn't enough. Here at International House Bielsko, we have training sessions every week in the first semester of the school. These input sessions are really useful, and a lot of the things that you learn there will help you in the lessons that you teach straight away. So you don't have to wait to apply the lessons you've learned. You can go straight in, teach it straight away. It's really useful. So, you find yourself a school with a good training program. What's next? For me, the essential next step is to get some kind of qualification, or at least some good training on the topic of teaching young learners. The CELTA is a great preparation for teaching in general, but the industry has moved enormously in towards teaching young learners. So here I'm talking children maybe from 8 years up, even to 18. We still consider them in a way young learners compared to adults, you know, who have that autonomy. So the sooner you can get some kind of young learner qualification, the better. Now, I left it a long time. I kept putting it off because I didn't have the time. I was always teaching. So I only did my young learners qualification last year. I'm so glad that I did. It's a really useful course run here at International House Bielsko. But International House do this over the internet as well, although I would say that a face-to-face course would be a lot better, where you've got the instant feedback you get from your observations. So doing something like the certificate in teaching younger learners would be really useful. There is also a CELTA extension that you can choose to do along with your initial teacher training. But I think that it is quite useful to have a short break between doing your teacher training and then doing the next round of training, just so that you have time to let those ideas kind of permeate into your teaching. So, you've got your CELTA. You're at a school that has regular training sessions, and you're now doing, or you've done, your young learner training course. Brilliant. Job's done, right? I wouldn't say so. Now's your chance to start to specialise. You can specialise in a lot of different areas, and there are lots of courses available, for example through International House and its organisation online. I'm about to start in a couple of weeks a course with IH online all about teacher training. So I'll be getting my teacher training certificate. I'm paying for this myself, but I mean, if you approach your school, they might be able to support you in some way if you need that. But I think that it will be a worthwhile investment because I'm really interested in teacher training and it's an area that I'd like to explore in the future. There are lots of other courses. Have a look in the description below to get the link, and you'll be able to see that there are courses on, for example, teaching business classes, teaching one-to-one classes, teaching online. So these are different areas in which you can specialise. And I'd say that after a year or two of teaching, you might be ready to start thinking about a specialisation. You'll have some experience and you'll know what sort of teacher you want to be. Okay, so you've now been teaching for a few years, you've got yourself a couple of qualifications, you've got plenty of practice as teacher, you know what you're doing. Now it's time to formalise those abilities and the things that you've learned. And there are a few ways in which you can do this. You could do the Delta, which is a diploma level course that Cambridge offer. You could do the Trinity Dip TESOL, which is also a diploma. Or you could do what I'm doing, which is a master's. I'm doing a master's degree in applied linguistics and TESOL online, so it's distance learning, with the University of Leicester. There are lots of other institutes, such as the University of Birmingham, that also offer the same sort of degree. Now the way that it works is that everything is done online, so there aren't any lectures to attend. All the course materials, for my course anyway, are uploaded to Blackboard, so this is one of those kind of, I don't know, pieces of software that you use for managing things. The degree itself runs for 2.5 years because it's a distance course. If you did it full time in person, it would take about a year to do. 1 academic year, that is. But I'm glad that I've got this time because I need it. I'm still working the same number of hours that I've always been working, and I'm studying on top of that. So there are 4 blocks in my course, and each block has 2 modules. Each module has an essay or a paper that I have to write that runs to about 3,000 words. There's a huge amount of reading, a lot of reflection, and some of it is pretty useful in terms of my teaching. At the end of those 4 blocks, I then have a small research project that I have to do. So I'm hoping to think of something clever that I can do with my students and then write all about that. But some of the other benefits of doing a course like this is that you have access to a huge e-library, hundreds and hundreds of books on the topics that you will face at school. So recently, for example, I read a book on discourse management. I didn't know much about discourse management before, but now I've started getting new ideas for how I should be teaching. It's really interesting actually, and I'll do a video on that quite soon, I should imagine. You also have access to a whole load of academic journals. And what I really like, well, there are 2 things I like about doing the Masters. And the first thing that I really like is that I don't now feel that my teaching takes place in a vacuum. I feel like I'm learning more about the whole culture of English language teaching. And I feel more part of that industry or that academic field. So that's really good. And the second thing that I like about doing the Masters or any kind of advanced or higher level qualification is that it's kind of signposting. It shows commitment to teaching, to your students, to yourself as a teacher, and it shows that you know, here I am not one of those backpack teachers that you might have heard about, somebody who goes in, teaches for a year and then goes back to whatever they were doing. I take this seriously, and the other people doing the course, they take it seriously as well. I mean, these are people with 10, 15 years of experience teaching. These are people who want to open their own language school. These are people who want to transform the way that we teach by doing research into better methodology. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff going on. So I would say that the Masters would probably be one of the highest levels you can aim at within English language teaching. It's an expensive course, and it's costing me more than twice the cost of a Delta, for example. And there are times when I think that the Delta might have been a better option because of the amount of feedback on my actual teaching that I would get, rather than it all being rather academic. But I'm glad that I'll have that MA and I'll have a formal qualification of real repute by the end of it. If I want to go any further, I'll have to do very well in the Masters to be able to get into a PhD program, for example, but that's going to take me away from teaching a little bit too much, and I don't know if that's what I want. I like teaching. I enjoy teaching. I'm quite happy that the Masters might be the last bit for me. But what comes after the Masters? Well, then you go back. You go back and you look at the other specializations. Maybe if I do teacher training for a few years, I'll enjoy it, and then I'll start thinking about being a better business teacher, and I'll go and do a course on that. Or maybe I'll explore this new world of online teaching. There are a lot of institutions springing up, and right now I wonder about the quality of the teaching there. Are these people who are good teachers, or are they just people with an internet connection and call themselves native speakers? Maybe there's more to the art of online teaching than I expect. So these are things that I'm definitely going to go into in the future. So there we go. You start with the CELTA. You find yourself a school that has a good training program, continuous development. You get yourself a young learner's qualification as soon as you can. Then you start to specialise, and after a few years, when you've built up some specialisations, you could start looking at the next step, the Delta, the DIP, TESOL, maybe a Masters. Have I missed anything? If you think I have, or you've got a different route through teacher development, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, thank you very much for joining me.